Good morning, students, and welcome back. This is Miss Maggie, and I'm a teacher support specialist with Albuquerque Public Schools. Welcome back for our second hour of learning for English language development. Today's episode is specifically dedicated to the wonderful volunteers that we have out here in our community and around the world. We are doing this episode in honor of National Volunteer Recognition Day, which is honored on April 20th. We're so excited to share all of this wonderful work on communities and volunteers with you today. If you remember from a previous lesson, Ms. Torres did a lesson on community. When she talked about community, she talked about it as the place where we live and the people that we live with. She also talked about how members of a community work together to make the world a better place. I'm actually going to invite Ms. Torres onto my show today. Well, not my show, the episode today, and she's going to be helping me to talk about some of the wonderful things that community people do every day in their jobs to support their community. As you can see, as we're doing this episode together, we're practicing good social distancing.
Good morning, boys and girls.
Let's look and talk at a couple of examples of ways that community members support their community through different jobs. We're going to be asking you some questions, so tune in closely. I'm going to show you a picture. Take a close look at this picture. Think about the things that you see. The word that I have put with this picture is the word farming. Say farming. Farming is a way that people can support their communities. Think about some of the things that people might farm. What do you observe in this picture? This is a good opportunity for you to practice some of your English language sentences using this sentence frame, I observe. Try those two words with me. I observe. Think for a second about what you observe in this picture about farming. Tell someone at home or your pet what you observe. Ms. Torres, maybe you can help me out. What do you observe in this picture?
I observe some fruits and maybe some stuff that was grown on a farm.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing that. Let's try another example. Take a close look at this picture. This is another community member at work. The word that I have placed with this picture is a teacher. Say teacher.
Teacher.
Take a look at what is happening in this picture with the teacher. This time, I'm going to ask you to make a prediction or a guess as to what's happening in the picture. As you think about this prediction, you can use this sentence frame to practice your English sentences. I predict this is. Think for a moment of what you predict is happening in this picture. Ms. Torres, I'm going to share my prediction with you. I predict this is a class lesson and the teacher is monitoring their learning.
I think that's what it looks like to me. And maybe the teacher is getting ready to teach a new lesson.
Fantastic. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Let's try another example of another community worker. picture here. Think about the things that you see in this picture. The word that I placed with this picture says food worker. Can you say food worker? That's right. I chose this word for a very specific reason. I chose this because there are many different types of workers that work with food. We have people that work in grocery stores. We have people that work in coffee shops, like this one, as baristas. We have people that work as chefs in restaurants or as waiters and waitresses. They are all different types of food workers. So now I'm going to ask you, what do you wonder about what's happening in this picture? Here's your sentence frame. I wonder, practice that with me. I wonder. What do you wonder about this picture? Miss Torres, would you share with us what you wonder about this picture?
I wonder what kind of food they serve here.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing that. Let's try another example. Here's our fourth picture. Go ahead and take a look. The word that I put with this picture is business. Say business. Sometimes people work in various businesses, and the number of businesses that are out there are so diverse and unique, each of them meeting its own need in the community. What do you observe about this business? Try your sentence frame again. I observe. Miss Torres, what do you observe in this picture?
I observe that there is a person working on a computer.
Excellent. Let's try another example of a community worker. Here is this picture of another community worker. Take a close look. Think about what is happening in the picture. The word I placed with this picture is firefighter. Can you say firefighter? Great job. Firefighters are one type of community member that we actively see helping in our communities. What do you predict is happening in this picture? Remember to use your sentence frame. I predict this is. Don't forget to tell someone your sentence. We're practicing speaking out loud. Ms. Torres, would you like to share your prediction with everyone?
Absolutely. I predict that this is a picture of some firefighters going to put out a fire.
Excellent. I thought the same thing. Let's try one more example. Take a look at the picture here. What do you see? The word I chose for this picture is officer. Can you say officer? There are many different types of officers in our community that help out in a variety of ways. Most often, we know police officers. However, there are also security officers that work for many businesses, and and some communities as well. What do you wonder about this picture? Don't forget to use your sentence frame. Ms. Torres, what do you wonder about this picture?
I wonder if she likes being an officer.
Fantastic. We're going to show a couple more examples, and we're going to put them up and briefly go through some of the pictures. We would still encourage you to fully use your sentence frames of I wonder, I observe, or I predict this is. But this time, it's going to be your choice. You get to pick which one you would like to use. Take a look at the picture. The word for this one is postal worker. Can you say postal worker? What do you observe, predict, or wonder about this picture? Your choice. I'm going to share one of my wonders. I wonder what wonderful packages he has in the car, in the truck. I wonder if there's a letter for me in there. Let's try another picture. Remember, this is your choice. Take a look at this picture. This is a custodian. We have so many wonderful custodians out there, especially here in our school district, that are making a difference every day in their community, especially during this coronavirus time. Share what you observe, what you predict, or what you wonder about this picture. Remember, your choice. Ms. Torres, what do you think?
Well, I observe that this amazing custodian is following all the safety rules. She has a mask and gloves, and also she even has protective eyewear.
Fantastic. Take a look at this picture. Think about what you see. The word I have for this picture is electrician. Can you say electrician? Great job. Many people in our community are working on the utilities on a regular basis. Electricians, plumbers, so many people are helping in their communities to keep our lives moving forward. What do you observe, predict, or wonder about this picture? I'll share my prediction. I predict that this electrician is working on a telephone pole with the electrical wires to make sure that everybody has electricity in their homes. That's what I predict. Let's try one more picture before we move on to our next activity. Take a look at the picture. The word I have for this picture is doctor. Say doctor. We have so many doctors, nurses, and other healthcare workers working so hard on a regular basis to make our community a safe and healthy place. What do you predict, wonder, or observe about this picture? Remember, it's your choice. Miss Torres, would you like to share?
I predict that this doctor is very busy.
That's a great prediction. Fantastic. So these are some of the ways that many of our community workers already support the community with the jobs that they do today. Thank you so much, Ms. Torres, for helping me out.
Thank you. Have a good day, boys and girls.
Today I'm going to teach you a new word. Not only do we have community workers that are working with their jobs, but we also have community workers that give their time. This word is called volunteer. I'm going to write it on my chart here. Volunteer. Can you say the word volunteer? Think about it for a second. Have you ever heard of the word volunteer? Say it one more time, just to try it out. Volunteer. Fantastic. We are going to be exploring this word volunteer throughout our lesson today. I'm going to show you a motion that's going to help you understand the word volunteer. Say volunteer one more time. Fantastic. Here's the motion that's going to help us with our word volunteer. Volunteer. I give. Try that with me. Volunteer. I give. We're going to explore this word throughout our lesson today. When we come right back, we're going to dive in more to the word volunteer. Welcome back. If you remember before we took a break, we started working on a new word, volunteer. Can you say volunteer? Fantastic. I have a poem for us, a chant, if you will, about volunteers. We're going to practice reading through this chant together. You're going to notice some high-level academic language words that's going to help us advance in our English language development. We are going to read through it first, just listening. You will listen to me read each of the words. I will go line by line, modeling good fluency as I read. The title is Volunteers Here, There. I'm going to start here at the beginning. Listen as I model good fluency. Volunteers here, volunteers there. Volunteers, volunteers everywhere. Collaborative volunteers work creatively. Eager volunteers help fearlessly. Kind volunteers advocate passionately. And patient volunteers contribute thoughtfully. Whew, those are a lot of strong words, don't you think? Let's try the next side. Ready? Listen carefully. Volunteers in our communities, volunteers throughout our neighborhoods, volunteers within our homes, and volunteers around the world. Volunteers here, volunteers there. Volunteers, volunteers everywhere. Volunteers, volunteers, volunteers. Wasn't that fun? This time, I want you to try reading it with me. So I'm going to go slowly again, line by line, hoping that you can try and read some of the words with me. If you notice, there's one key word that I want you to read every single time. Do you know what that word might be? That's right, volunteer. That's the word volunteer. Practice it with me. Volunteer. Perfect. Let's get ready for the title. Are you ready to read with me? Here we go. Volunteers here. I'm sorry. My bad. I have to start again. I need to read the title first. Here we go. Volunteers here, there. Here we go. Volunteers here, volunteers there. Volunteers, volunteers everywhere. Ready for the next one? Here we go. Collaborative volunteers work creatively. Eager volunteers help fearlessly. Kind volunteers advocate passionately. And patient volunteers contribute thoughtfully. Let's go to the next one. Ready? Here we go. Volunteers in our communities, volunteers throughout our neighborhoods, volunteers within our homes, and volunteers around the world. Ready for the last part? Here we go. Volunteers here, volunteers there. Volunteers, volunteers everywhere. Volunteers, volunteers, volunteers. Great job. Even if you didn't get every single word in the poem, did you read volunteers with us? Great. That was the key word that I wanted you to read most of all, was volunteers. We're going to do the chant again. This time, I'm going to add in movement to help us remember some of the words and to help us practice what some of those words mean. One thing that we're going to do to accommodate for many of our diverse learners that are out there is I am going to do this in two different ways. The first way, I'm going to just read the line aloud. So that way I can give time for the sign language interpreter to sign the words. Then I'm going to say it again with the movements. So then that way our diverse learners out there can also participate with the movements as well. So I will read it one time, and then I will read it again with the movements. Ready? Volunteers here, volunteers there. Volunteers here, volunteers there. Volunteers, volunteers everywhere. Volunteers, volunteers everywhere. Collaborative volunteers work creatively. Collaborative volunteers work creatively. Eager volunteers help fearlessly. Eager volunteers help fearlessly. Kind volunteers advocate passionately. Kind volunteers advocate passionately. And patient volunteers contribute thoughtfully. And patient volunteers contribute thoughtfully. volunteers in our communities, volunteers in our communities, volunteers throughout our neighborhoods, volunteers throughout our neighborhoods, volunteers within our homes, volunteers within our homes, and volunteers around the world, and volunteers around the world. Volunteers here, volunteers there. Volunteers here, volunteers there. Volunteers, volunteers everywhere. Volunteers, volunteers everywhere. Volunteers, volunteers, volunteers. Volunteers, volunteers, volunteers. Wasn't that fun? You all did such a wonderful job. A copy of this chant is going to be available on our APS website, so you can practice this chant at home. Don't worry, there's no copyright issues because I wrote the poem. Now, one of the things that we're also going to do with this poem is we're going to add in some pictures to help us understand some of the words that we read today. I'm going to get my marker. Let's think more about this word volunteers. And notice some of the things that volunteers can do. When it says collaborative volunteers work creatively, and if you remember our movement for collaborative, I brought my hands together. That's because sometimes volunteers work as a team. They help each other. That's what collaborative means, that they help each other. When we say that they work creatively, that means that they are thinking of many ideas that help them to volunteer in creative ways. The next line says, eager volunteers help fearlessly. That means that a volunteer is somebody who really wants to do the work. They're excited about it. They're eager. And when they help fearlessly, that means that they think about the risks that volunteering could potentially have. For example, we have volunteers that work in some of our food banks where they are around other people in close proximity, but they are being fearless and helping those in need. So when we say fearlessly, they are thinking about what risks could be involved in volunteering, and they encounter those risks without fear. Our next line says, kind volunteers advocate passionately. Most of you probably know what kind is. Kind is someone who's nice. They say nice things to others, and they do nice things for other people. And when we say advocate passionately, it means that they talk about the kinds of things that they want to help with. They send messages. So when they advocate, they are finding ways to talk and send messages about volunteer opportunities that they feel strongly about. That's what passionately means. They feel strongly. And patient volunteers contribute thoughtfully. Being a volunteer sometimes means that you have to be patient, that you have to wait. I'm going to draw a little clock here to show patient, that they have to wait. When they contribute, they give, and they think carefully about what they are giving. So I'm going to show hands, giving, and that they are thoughtful about it. Let's think about some of the places where volunteers work. When it says volunteers in our communities, that means in the place where we live. You might remember that from when Ms. Torres talked about what communities are. So this might be where we live, in our buildings, in our homes, in the parks. Communities involve all of these things, and the people that we live with. Volunteers throughout our neighborhoods. I wonder what a neighborhood is. Can you help me think of a neighborhood? That's right. It's the place where you live. So the neighborhoods are the people and places where we live as well. Neighborhood sounds a lot like communities. They might be similar in some ways. Volunteers within our homes, wherever we live, whether it's in an apartment, a house, a condo, or with our other family members. And volunteers around the world. You probably have heard this word before as well, around the world. These are the things that volunteers can do, and these are also the things that volunteers can say, as well as where volunteers can take place. There are so many things that volunteers can do. The possibilities are numerous. There's so many. Let's talk a little bit about how we learn about volunteers in this poem and the structure of this poem. Have you ever talked about a poem structure before? You might have not. But just like stories, poems have their own structure. Isn't that exciting? In our poem, our structure shows us what volunteers do, say, and where they're at. Just like stories are broken into parts called paragraphs, poems are broken into sections called stanzas. Can you say stanza? Fantastic. A stanza is a group of lines in a poem that go together. For example, This is one stanza. The lines are grouped together. This one here is also a stanza. The lines are grouped together. This one here is a stanza. The lines are grouped together. And lastly, this is also a stanza. The lines are grouped together. That's what a stanza is. Can you say stanza? How many stanzas were in this poem? Will you count them with me? Ready? Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. There are 4 stanzas in this poem. Now, let's think about what the purpose of the poem was. Let's review one more time what we read about in this poem. We introduced volunteers. We talked about what volunteers can do. We talked about where volunteers are at. And then we concluded our poem. So let's think about what the purpose was. I learned about volunteers. I learned what they did. And I learned where they were at. Think about it for a second. I'm wondering if you came to the same conclusion I did, that the purpose was to teach us about volunteers. When we look at poems and when we read our stories, we can figure out the reason that an author writes something by looking at the different structures in the poem. Are you ready to try another fun activity using our chant that we just practiced? Fantastic. I have another fun activity. We are going to be using the words from the poem to create our own sentences. I have a chart here on this side. This is a sentence patterning chart. We're going to be talking about the different parts of sentences that are in our poem, and we're going to be adding them to this chart. The first one I'm going to talk about is adjective. Say adjective. Adjectives describe a noun. Well, let's think for a second. What is the noun, the person, the place, or thing that we were talking about in our poem? Do you remember? That's right, volunteer. I'm going to write volunteer under nouns. Volunteer. If we look back at our poem, there are some different ways that we describe volunteers. In English, some of the time, adjectives come right before the noun that they are describing. We have some of those in our poem. They are collaborative volunteers, eager volunteers, kind volunteers, and patient volunteers. I'm going to write those 4 adjectives onto my chart. Collaborative, eager, kind, and patient. talk about the verbs that are in our poem. Do you know what a verb is? A verb is an action. Say verb. Verbs are actions, things that we do. What are some things that volunteers do? Do you remember from our poem? That's right. They work. They help. They advocate. They contribute. These are all things that volunteers can do. I'm going to write those 4 verbs on our chart. Work, help, advocate, contribute. Now we're going to look at adverbs. Adverbs, in this case, are words that help describe the verb. They can tell us how we act. In this particular case, our adverbs are coming right after the verb. Creatively, that's how they work. Fearlessly, that's how they help. Passionately, that's how they advocate. And thoughtfully, that's how they contribute. I'm going to write those adverbs onto our chart. Creatively, fearlessly, passionately, and thoughtfully. Our last part is going to be for a prepositional phrase. That's a long one. Can you say it with me? Prepositional phrase. This can tell us where or when. Let's look at this stanza, our 3rd stanza, to figure out where or when we have volunteers. I see that we have volunteers in our communities, throughout our neighborhoods, within our homes, and around the world. This tells us where volunteers are at. I'm going to add those prepositional phrases to our chart. In our communities, throughout our neighborhoods, within our homes, and around the world. The reason why I put these on our chart was because I have some fun games that we can play just with this sentence patterning chart. What we're going to do is we're going to make our very own sentences. And for this, I have a little bit of a song. Oops. I'm going to use a little bit of a Post-it note to indicate are adjectives, a noun, a verb, one adverb, and a prepositional phrase. And I'll teach you how the song goes. I'm going to choose collaborative, and I'm going to choose kind. I'm going to use the word volunteer, of course. They will contribute creatively. I'm going to pick creatively this time. And I'm going to say within our homes. By choosing these words, what I have done is I have now made my very own sentence. If I was to say the sentence, it would sound like this. Collaborative, kind, volunteers contribute creatively within our homes. Will you read that with me? Collaborative, kind, volunteers contribute creatively within our homes. Now I have a fun song for us. This is how it goes. Listen carefully. Collaborative, kind, volunteers. Collaborative, kind, volunteers. Collaborative, kind, volunteers contribute creatively within our homes. Will you try that with me? Collaborative, kind, volunteers. Collaborative, kind, volunteers. Collaborative, kind, volunteers contribute creatively within our homes. Do you want to try one more? I bet you do. I'm going to change our adjectives to eager and patient. We got to keep volunteers. That's part of our song. They will help passionately, and they will help around the world. Try the tune with me one more time. Are you ready? Here we go. Eager, patient volunteers. Eager, patient volunteers. Eager, patient volunteers help fearlessly around the world. Let's try that one more time. Eager, patient volunteers. Eager, patient volunteers. Eager, patient volunteers help passionately around the world. Wasn't that so much fun? We're going to take a tiny, quick break. I know we only have a few minutes left, but I want to share one more game with you. So stay tuned, and we'll be back right after this break. Welcome back. I'm so glad that you're with us. We have one more activity for you today based off of the chant that we did earlier in this lesson. This is a game, and it's called the Reading Trading Game. What I have done is I took every word that we put on our sentence patterning chart, and I made them into their own individual word cards. This is something that you could do at home as well with just paper and a writing utensil. I used paper and markers to color code the parts of my sentences. You can choose to do this how you think would work best for you and your students at home. In this game, what we do is we're going to pick two adjectives, the red words that are here, our noun, a verb, an adverb, and a prepositional phrase. And we're going to build our own sentences, which is very exciting and fun and can lead us into writing. I'm going to show you an example of one. I am going to choose collaborative and patient as my two adjectives. Notice how I put them next to each other. They're going to begin my sentence. Collaborative, patient volunteers. Collaborative, patient, volunteers. I am going to say that they will work collaborative, patient, volunteers work creatively collaborative, patient, volunteers work creatively within our homes. Within our homes. Notice that with this sentence, I started at the beginning of my line, I went all the way to the end, and then came back to the beginning of the next line. That's how we naturally write sentences. So that's what we're going to be doing as we extend this into writing. You can take these sentences that you construct and build and then create them as a sentence. Collaborative, patient volunteers work creatively within our homes. You can write that down on your own piece of paper and then add a drawing to it. And this can help build into your writing skills. Let's try another one. This time, I'm going to pick eager and kind. Eager, kind, volunteers. Eager, kind, volunteers. What should I have these eager, kind volunteers do this time? I know, they will advocate. Eager, kind volunteers advocate. Let's add in an adverb. They will advocate thoughtfully. Eager, kind volunteers advocate thoughtfully. Let's add our prepositional phrase. Eager, kind volunteers advocate thoughtfully throughout our neighborhoods. Isn't that an amazing sentence? You can create amazing sentences just like this. Along with our chant, the sentence patterning chart with our words will be on the APS website as one of the materials that you can use to help build your own sentences. For today's closing, let's come back to this word volunteer. It connects back to our essential question of how do people support their communities? One of the different ways is that they can volunteer. So let's think. What are volunteers? What do you predict the word means? You can use this sentence frame to help. I predict the word means. What do you think volunteers are? Fantastic. They are people who help our community. People who help our community. Think about what you learned about volunteers today. Talk to somebody you know at home about volunteers and ways that you could even give back in your community. Today's episode is dedicated to all the wonderful volunteers that help out in our communities every day. They give back in the many multiple ways that we can't even imagine. Once again, thank you so much for joining us on this episode of At Home with APS, and we'll see you again soon. Have a great day.